Hello and welcome to the 100th episode of Are You Really Going to Eat That? I just wanted to check that we were live, and we are live. So today we're doing an extra special episode because we're live, and I have invited on some past guests, some members of Ditch the Diet and other people that are involved in the business to come and join me today. So we have a couple who are in the waiting room, so I'm going to let them in and we're just going to have a chat and see how these go. So we've got Lena and Danny in the waiting room, so I'm going to let them in and say hey. So for those of you, if you are listening to this on the actual podcast app, you can go to my Facebook page, which is at He'll Start Nutrition, and watch the video, the live video of this. So like I said, it's an extra special episode, 100th episode. And I can't believe we're on 100 already. So we're going to see how this goes, see who comes on. I actually posted on the Facebook page this morning if anyone had any questions for me. So if I get to those, we will do. But actually, I might do another one with those questions. So we'll see how we go. So we're just connecting at the moment. Danny, I've got no pictures of anyone, but I do have Danny and Lena on. Also, Danny is hello. So I think, you're not muted. So hey, Danny, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I think it's set that it's automatically muted and no video. I thought that's how you wanted it.
Oh no. So I did set it to muted because I thought if people come on and we're chatting, but no, video and unmuted is good. So hey Lena, are you okay as well?
I'm good, thank you. Mine was the same, and I thought maybe you wanted this muted for now.
Yeah, I did do the mute. So I mean, for a bit of housekeeping, what I'd say is if we're chatting, then leave yourself off mute. If you're not, if you can do, because it just pops up. But anyone that comes in will be muted anyway. So that's brilliant. So if you've changed your colour of your hair, haven't you, Lena?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I thought so. I really like it. So last time I saw Lena, she had dark hair, and if you watch the live video, you will see that. So Lena, thank you for coming on, firstly, and you're a listener of the podcast, and you were also a member of my Ditch the Diet for a while as well, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, I first found you through actually listening to your podcast all throughout lockdown, and I've listened to every single episode, and some of them I had on repeat. And then when I was Googling and searching for local nutritionists and someone who helped me with the healthy living, I found you. I was like, oh, I couldn't believe that was actually, you are the person I was listening to for the last, I don't know how many months.
Oh, fabulous. And thank you so much for listening. I do really appreciate that. And he left me a wonderful review as well. And Danny is a very good friend of mine, and she has also been on the podcast. So Danny, you were on episode 54. Can you believe it was that long ago?
Not at all. I can't believe that you're at 100. Can you?
No, I can't, to be honest. I can't. And I want to share with you, before I ask you anything else, I want to share with you, I had some amazing news this morning. So to mark the 100th episode, what could be the best news is that I have actually fully qualified, yay, finally, as a nutritional therapist. So I was waiting for some final results to come through. A couple of items in my portfolio had to be marked, and I actually got an email this morning to say, yeah, you've done it. All good. So
well done.
Thank you.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, high five. Yeah, perfect timing couldn't be better, could it? So I'm always going to remember when my 100th episode was and when I actually got my final results through. So Danny, you came on and spoke to us about the GLASS method, and obviously I think, wow, lockdown, that was, so vital to so many people. I'd love for you to share, since we spoke 50 episodes ago. So like, that's what my math isn't working today. Is it a year ago? Roughly a year ago.
I don't know, some time ago.
Roughly a year or so. Lockdown would have literally we'd have been in the midst of the very first kind of lockdown, wouldn't we? I'd love to know what has changed, what have you learned since that time? What has the GLASS method research sort of shown you?
Well, lots of things, I think, from a personal perspective and also from a professional perspective. But we did, as you know, quite a lot of research around kindness during that time. And for those that don't know, I do an act of kindness every day, and I have done since the 1st of January 2016. And because of the lockdown and a lot of the stuff that Wendy and I talk about and are passionate about, we decided to do an experiment as I approached my 2000th day around kindness, and in particular self-kindness. And that's the thing that became really fascinating, this importance of self-kindness and what gets in the way of it. And it's a bit like putting the oxygen mask on. If you can do that, then you can go out and you can conquer the world and do all those amazing things. But if you're not in a great space, which we know has, there's lots of different things that create that great place for you, diet obviously being one of them, then it makes it much harder. So I think the self-kindness has been a really interesting part of that, our research, and how balanced people are feeling and how they're being impacted by the uncertain future. And I think uncertainty is such a fascinating topic, and how most people would rather have certainty of something horrible than the uncertainty of opportunity. And I think that's a really fascinating area as well that we're looking at.
That is fascinating, but I would agree as well. And I think going on a slight tangent, which we always do when we chat, Dani. So, when on a slight tangent, I get that in my world as well, because it's almost like when I get clients come to me and they're perhaps waiting for a diagnosis, and they come to me and they say, I've been to the doctor and I've had all these tests done, and they're inconclusive, they haven't found anything. They're almost disappointed, because it's almost like if they can not label it, sometimes it is about labeling, but that kind of like knowing that, and you're like, well, that's good, isn't it? Because it means there's nothing wrong with you. So we can do work and improve your health. And they're almost like, well, I'd rather have known I'd got X, Y, Z. And you're like, it is that kind of, almost knowing is better than not knowing. I think that's the key, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think even sometimes to know the bad news, at least once you know it, you can get on with it. And I think a lot of us felt that during the various lockdowns of, please just be honest with us, tell us where we are, because we can plan for those things.
Yes.
When you don't have the information, or the information is confused, go out, stay at home, all that kind of thing, we just don't know where to put ourselves, and we become, as we call it, stuck. And there's a lot of that that's gone on.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. Lena, thank you for listening to the podcast in lockdown. Did you find that you listened to others and that they helped you? I have to say, I really did.
Yeah, well, I have listened to quite a few podcasts for all lockdown. I think I started something when the lockdown, when we went into lockdown, going for a walk every single day, which I wasn't able to do that while I was working in the office, and going for a walk every single day and just listening to different podcasts. And that's how I came across yourself and all others. And that's what kind of triggered my interest in well-being and health, and just looking at the well-being overall. So it's not just about food or exercise, but it's mental well-being. I have actually I have listened to quite a few, and I have quite a few favorites, but you're one of them.
I think it's helped us all through, and going for a walk is definitely key. We have another member come in. Thank you, Lucy.
Hello.
Lucy I was trying to get Lucy on a minute ago, so if you saw me like moving around when you watched the video back, that was because we were in different rooms. So how are you today?
I'm really well, thank you. I've just done a personal training session, my first in like 5 years. So I'm feeling like this is the perfect conversation to follow up with.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, you don't look at all hot and sweaty. So thank you for coming on and looking so beautiful.
Well, I did have like a 15-minute, quick turnaround sesh. How's everything else?
Oh, brilliant. We're doing really, really well. I just shared with everyone, you will have just missed it, but I know you'll be really interested, because Lucy's always that I qualified today. I actually got my last result through today. So
congratulations. You've worked so hard.
Timing. Thank you. So I know Lucy's now one of my work buddies, one of my work besties, I would call her. So Lucy has worked with me one-to-one and on the Ditch the Diet, and also listens to the podcast, I know, very much. So we were just chatting, Lucy, about lockdown and how we think that kind of podcasting has helped a little bit, and about that kind of, Dani was doing quite a lot of research, and she said it's kind of like that uncertainty that we prefer to know, even if it's bad news, we prefer to know, than that whole like not knowing and uncertainty. And I think, would you agree that in lockdown, I think people have gone either sat in one camp or the other, and not doesn't necessarily mean for the whole time, but it's either been like, I'm really focusing on my health, or you know what, I'm just going to eat anything because I don't care. And I think a lot of us had that real sway, that kind of seesaw emotion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think I've definitely gone through that kind of that wave of being really focused, then really focused on work. So I did that thing where I kind of let go of my nutrition and my own well-being, and then realized that kind of because of lockdown and the fact that everything is here in my house and I didn't have to go anywhere to work, I was working more and more and more and looking after myself less and less and less, which is why it's great to have things like your podcast to kind of just bring myself back, kind of like back in the room, listen to the voice of reason from Wendy, and think about, you know, what can I do to actually look after myself a little bit better.
That's good. And I would agree, actually, for me as well, Lucy. I actually said this morning to my husband, I had a cup of coffee in bed this morning. I would never normally do that on a Wednesday morning. And I'm like, I just feel like I've worked every day for like ever. I mean, and I probably haven't, but because I'm working, so if you can see the background, this is my lovely home clinic, which is great. And I do really, you know, there are a lot of positives from that, but actually kind of having it here and being a bit of a workaholic means that I do tend to come into the office every day to do something, and it can be, you know, it can be quite draining, and it is hard to get that balance. And I think a lot of us have found that you know, lockdown has meant that more and more of us are working from home. Did you work from home anyway before? Well, you've had a bit of a mixture, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done a mixture. So I was always working sort of doing consulting work, where I would work probably 80% of the time at home, and then I'd go to client offices. And obviously with lockdown, you know, it just went to 100% at home. And then I've also been building my own business on the other side of that. So I took on 2 jobs during lockdown from home with kids at home and all the stuff. And I found it really hard to have those boundaries. And even, you know, this is my little office at home, but then obviously I'm working from a laptop. So my laptop would then literally move around the house with me. And whenever I had a minute, I'd just be like, oh, I'll just do something else. So I've really had to, and just recently really get in control of what those boundaries are. But even Jason, my personal trainer just now, he was saying, you know, he said, I took Monday off. Like didn't do anything, and it was like almost like a confession, and that's almost where we've all got to now. It's like, well, you confess to having time off work.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That is a really good point. Right, I'm going to bring you back a little bit to the podcast, because obviously we are here to have a chat about the 100th podcast, and a bit of history. So you ladies, thank you so much. I've been listening all along, but to anyone who is a new listener, or if you're watching on Facebook, so you can watch this if you watch a recording, you can go to my Facebook page, which is at Hillstart Nutrition, and see the video recording as well. But I started the podcast because I wanted to reach people and talk about healthy eating. And originally the podcast was called Ditch the Diet because my membership is called Ditch the Diet. And so it made sense. But then actually I was like, I don't want to talk. So I had lots of people contact me who wanted to talk about weight loss, and that is not my message. So I'm like, right, how do I make this work? So I changed the name. I think it was after about 12 episodes to Are You Really Going to Eat That? Which I think is a much better message for me. And you guys that know me know I love my food. I talk about pizza and beer every episode. I'm really hoping I'm going to get sponsored. I still haven't, but I'm going to try every episode. So it was about that. And I think the podcast has taken a journey very similar to mine, that my learning has probably shown in those 100 episodes. I mean, I'd literally only just started the course when I started this. So my question is, there is a question in this, and I'm going to come to you first, Lucy, because we've just been chatting. What do you like most about the podcast, and has there anything that you would say that you found, you know, would you agree it's a learning that you've come on the journey with me, and what would you like to see more of? So what do you like and what would you like to see more of? I think those are my 2 questions.
Good questions. So when I first found you, it was probably just a few weeks after you started the podcast then. But I was that, and I hadn't we hadn't worked together at that point. We weren't even in each other's worlds. And I found you through another podcast. It's a revelation to me that you were so new into all of this at that point. It honestly really is. And because you came across as so confident. And one of the things I loved the most in the early days of the podcast was learning so much. Every single week I was learning things, and I was feeling your joy coming through at everything that you were sharing with us as well. So I think in the review that I did for you way back when, I think I said something about how much I learned every single week. There was something new that I hadn't ever come across. And I'm reasonably well read in kind of health and nutrition. So I was always getting that little nugget of something that made me think differently, which was really, really important. What would I like more of? Oh, that's a fantastic question as well. I mean, is it okay to say more of the same? I love the mixture of, I love the mixture of, you know, the seasonal advice, the kind of bringing us back, sort of back in the room stuff, isn't it? You know, if you have gone a little bit off course, come back, bring it back to basics sometimes. But then also the interviews. I love the interviews and just all the different people that you're meeting and looking at those different perspectives and understanding how different people address their health and nutrition, and also how it then translates into related industries. So it's kind of just like a big thumbs up from me. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I think I really take what you said about the learning, and because I do have a real passion for it. And I did train as a nutritionist a few years ago, but actually for me, I found that it wasn't a bit, I suppose, probably like you. I felt that the knowledge that I had was kind of, you know, it was okay. It was great. I knew about food, I knew about macronutrients and stuff, but I didn't really understand how the body really worked, you know, about how it affected hormones, you know, all neurotransmitters and things like that, things that I know about. But actually, you don't want me to tell you the science, because that's the boring bit. You want to hear how it really works in the body. And I hope that's what I deliver, is that I hope that's my skill, is that I can take that sort of science knowledge and then make it real and appropriate to us. And that's what I really love, is when you're delivering something, whether it be a client one-to-one or you're chatting to somebody. And that's the one thing about podcasting, you can't see that you reach people, but I love that like light bulb moment where you say something and you can see that someone goes, that makes sense. Because that's the key, isn't it? We you know, with not knowledge is power. And if I just say to you, don't eat this or eat more of this, well, why? You know, take this supplement, why? Whereas if you can make those connections and it applies appropriate to you, for me, that's what I always wanted to do, is be able to do that, to deliver that.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. It's translating it from that kind of complex scientific basis, and it's so important for me to know you've got that, but then you take it and you translate it and interpret it and apply it to me. So it feels, and even through the podcast, when it's not a one-on-one consultation, it feels like I can listen to that and think, okay, what can I take from that and understand that in the context of my world? Because that's where, you know, you're taking all of that science and saying, you know, let's turn this into reality, guys.
Yeah, brilliant. Good. Thank you. Lena, would you mind, can I ask you the same question? So it was kind of like, what do you like about the podcast, and what would you like to hear more about? What would you like me to do more of?
I have to agree with a lot what Lucy has said. There are so many things that I like, and I actually, every single Wednesday when I see that email pop up to say it's out there, I go away and listen. Seasonal stuff is always it's just a reminder sometimes of, you know, of what to actually focus on, because that's what I do try to do. I'm trying to focus on seasonal stuff. So just a reminder when you talk about it. I love the interviews that you do because there are so many great stories and different things to learn from somebody else, and usually motivates me as well, just to try and work on myself better. Gut health as well. So like Lisa said, a lot of things that, you know, you say is, even though it is based on science, you actually translate it to the language so everybody can understand. And I think that I just want more of that. I like listening to things, how different things help different, like body type and health reasons and things like that.
Oh, fab. Thank you so much, Arissa. I actually wrote down, because I thought, what am I going to talk about? In case no one came on, I'd kind of got a little plan in case I was talking to myself as usual. And I thought, I'm going to tell them which episodes I love. And actually, I wrote down, it's funny you should both say that, because I wrote down that the episodes that I loved was the seasonal ones. I love doing those. I just have such great fun with them. And then the interviewing people who are really passionate. So I think that some of the key takeaways for me were, recently was the food in schools. So I did Naomi for food in schools, and I also spoke to Julian from seasonal Eat Well, I think it was called, I can't remember now, and my brain's gone numb and I had it a minute ago, but I love them. It was passion, and that's what I love, is talking to people who have a different story, but also people who are really passionate about what they do, whether they're a food supplier or they're involved in the food industry. It's always really, I love that, and talking to different people. I would never get a chance to do that, so yeah, it's good that you should say that. Thank you.
Yeah,
really
and then
appreciate
learning
that.
about so like your episode with canola, I'm not sure.
Quinoa, canola, yeah,
quinoa,
what can we
yeah,
say?
all that different pronunciation. I've just learned a lot about it, because I used to see that on the shelf, either like in the supermarket or online, but I didn't really know the background of it, and how it came about, and actually what they do for environment, and that pushed me into actually purchasing that particular brand because I've listened to your episodes. So things like that I really enjoy.
Oh, that's good. And that's good for the suppliers to hear. So if there's any potential guests out there, it's good to know that they are reaching the audience and having an impact, because, that's really important for them, and also helps me get good guests as well, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Dani, can I ask you the same question, please?
Well, I think the two previous ladies have summed it up really well. The thing that I've always loved about the podcast and you is that feeling that even if it's an expert that you're talking to, we're sat around the table together, and you can feel, even as somebody that's listening in, that you're part of a friendship group and a conversation. It's always very warm. There's always some laughter and something that makes it very approachable to everybody. And that doesn't really matter whether it is technical, whether it's a supplier, all of those different things, I think, come together really well. And in terms of where you set it up around the ditch the diet, and I loved when you changed it and said, actually, it's about so much more than that, and it's sending people in the wrong direction. Typically, you won't be surprised that I looked up the meaning of nutrition as a word, and the Latin word that it comes from is nutrire, and that actually means to feed and nourish. And I think what the podcast does, and what you are doing, is feeding and nourishing minds and bodies, and much more than what am I going to eat. And so people are able to learn things and take things away from that as well. So I think that's from everything that you've done so far. And in terms of where it goes from here, I think it's always exciting, isn't it, when we look at the future? And I think that diverse mix, for those that don't know, Wendy and I also do a Clubhouse thing called Deliberately Inquisitive. And I think that inquisitiveness comes into play all the time, understanding more about things, as Lucy said, and even if it's not something of direct interest, there is always something that can be learned from it. And I think to continue doing that by talking to people in the supply chain, in the packaging world, in the to the humble home cook, everybody has something that we can take away and learn, whether it's somebody's story or some expertise. I think it's, the more diverse, the better, because it all feeds back to, pardon the pun, this whole thing of feeding and nourishing. So, and just for those that don't know, Wendy and I met many, many, many years ago, and she wasn't a nutritionist at that point. But the day I met her, she was wearing red, as she's wearing today. But it was a red polo shirt, and it had her family business logo emblazoned on the chest. And Wendy was frustrated, angry, tired, and not the person that I see on the screen today, beaming, celebrating not only her 100th podcast, but also qualifying formally as a nutritionist. So proud of you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so proud to call you a friend. And Dani has been such an amazing support for me. And yes, this brings me back to being able to talk about our Deliberate Inquisitive Clubhouse. So we're 11 o'clock on a Friday, every Friday. So if you'd like to come along, and what I really love about the Deliberate Inquisitive Clubhouse room is that there is no agenda. We're not there. We're about to talk about our businesses, very much people said when Clubhouse came along, it was a marketing thing. And actually, we just really love to have a chat. And we love where the question takes us every week. And it does feed my inquisitiveness. And maybe that was part of the reason for doing the course. In fact, not maybe, definitely the reason for having to, doing a nutrition course and going, this isn't enough, I need to know more. It is that inquisitive nature. I always want to know more. And then I always want to be able to kind of take a learning and translate it and share it. I'm such a big sharer. My poor husband comes home every day, and I'm sure I tell him every day something that I've learned, something new that's happened or something. And he's like, yeah, great, really? I'm not really that bothered, bless him. But it is that inquisitiveness. So yes, if you are Clubhouses, do come and join us, because we have great questions, take them in great location, great sort of, just different ways, different paths. This week is what do you have to stop apologizing about? Which I think Tony's laughing at me because I got it wrong last week. But yeah, I think it's a very British thing as well, what you have to stop apologizing for. Lucy, you are a member of my Ditch the Diet membership. Obviously the name of the podcast originally came from that, but the membership came about a long time before that. So the membership has been about a couple of years now, and it was set up in response to lots of people asking me to help them with, questions like, what is the best diet? Which diet would you recommend for me if XYZ? And as you will all know from listening to the podcast, I do not believe in the perfect diet. The only diet is the one that you create for yourself. I believe in understanding how foods make you feel, how they support you nutritionally, and then making your own decisions. We're all adults here. But the Ditch the Diet is lovely, and I love it. And again, it feeds that community for me. And, I love sharing my knowledge and stuff. But Lucy, can I ask you, because you've been a member for quite a while now, would you like to share with the listeners, what is it that you like about Ditch the Diet?
Yeah, of course. So having found your podcast and listened to you for a while, I'm thinking, this is a lady that I want in my world. You then advertised your Gut Reset, like a 5-day challenge thing. And I did that and absolutely loved it, and had a little bit of insight into what's it like to step into Wendy's world. So it was, having done that and felt amazing, loved the food, loved the community, loved the support. I was like, it's an absolute no-brainer for me that I want to carry on doing this. So I then did 2 things, because I signed up to be a one-to-one client with you as well.
Did, yeah.
And had incredible support from you through sort of a difficult time health-wise, and eventually through working with you and my GP, had a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, and you've helped me to kind of develop a plan for how to really thrive despite that, alongside being part of the community and the membership. So it was just like this double whammy of goodness for me. And I love the community. I love the people in there, because I think like attracts like. So you've attracted people who kind of have that good outlook on life and want to feel their best and to feel like they're giving themselves nutrition in every sense. So that's great. And we all swap ideas and tips, and you're in there and sort of answering lots of questions. So loads of extra support from you as well, which is great. But then also you've got the membership site. So we've got the Facebook group, but we also have the membership site we can log into. And we've got so many recipes in there, like more and more all the time, whole meal plans, shopping lists. What I love is I look at a meal plan and I've got my shopping list right there. So it makes it dead easy for me. I can tick off what I need because I've got some stuff in the cupboard already, and just it simplifies everything that I'm doing. So never lost for an idea for dinner, never lost for ideas of how to also practically work that into my family meal plan, because of course I've got 3 small children who love one thing one day and hate the same thing the next day. But you know, I have all that practical kind of like how to negotiate with your children around all of this as well. So it provides so much for me. And then you've got the ongoing sort of deeper dives into different topics as well. So where I have a sort of I think as so many of us do, a little bit of a thirst for knowledge is like, well, let me understand a little bit more about why and how I make that work for me. You know, you go into it. We have our mini challenges inside the group as well. Like my favorite one has been the can you eat 30 different colors of fruit and vegetable this week, and having the little tick sheet and seeing the little kind of competitive streak from some of us.
It was mad, wasn't it? It was quite I think that was quite surprising, was suddenly all these people popped up and like, I've done it in like, some people did it in a day, which was, you know, I think that was a lot of forward planning, but it was quite funny how people got very competitive over whether I can do this or not.
But it's so much fun, and that's why I think some people would think, oh, well, you know, a nutrition membership, well, that's going to be, you know, talking about all, you know, good, healthy, boring stuff all the time. But it's not like that. It's really genuinely very, very fun and so supportive. So I would hand on heart recommend it to everyone I know. And in fact, I have done, and I've brought friends into the membership.
You have. Thank you. And it becomes, and that's what I love about that is the community there, and there are lots of people who their friends are in the group, or you know, and so you do make friends. You guys interact when I'm not even there. People will post like questions, or I love it when people post pictures of their food, and we'll often do little mini challenges, and I'll be like, what you had. So normally at this time I cook, so on a Wednesday lunchtime I cook lunch every week live in the members group, and I still surprise myself by what I find, not what I find to cook, because obviously I've got to feed myself, but how I can manage to talk for 25 minutes every single Wednesday about nutrition and food, just like blah 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 blah. But I love it, and it's great, and you guys come on and ask questions and tell me what you're cooking, and it you know, it motivates me as well. At the end of the day, we're all human, and as much as I understand nutrition and food, there are days when I need a bit of support and motivation, and you guys give it to me as much as I give it to you. So thank you, because it is a great little community. Do my sales pitch now. If anyone is interested in joining, we go to www.ditch-the-diet.co.uk. It's just £18 a month. So it's a really low cost subscription. And like I said, it's not about dieting. It's about understanding the facts. And because I'm very much a foodie nutritionist, there's a new recipe every single week, and I'm always in there cooking and talking to you about different foods and things, but it is about understanding, you know, for me, if we all ate real food, that would solve a lot of our chronic illnesses. And so that's what I'm promoting, is not about restriction and dieting. It's just about eating real food and really enjoying it. And I'm very much about fast meals, convenient meals, family friendly is really the thing that I want. And while I'm on this, I need to say, because there's only a few days left before sign out, if anyone wants to do my 5-week transformation program, I finished the last one a week ago. The results have been amazing. I'm just doing them at the moment. I know it's not a weight loss plan, but I do need to let you know that one lady lost a stone while she was doing it. I mean, that is just phenomenal. So it's a gut reset. It's around the 5 R's gut reset protocol, supported by NutriAdvance. I'm one of their gut practitioners, and it is amazing. And everyone that did it just said how much better they felt, got rid of brain fog, slept better, had more energy, and as well as improved their gut function. So you can go to healstart.me.uk/transformation and sign up for that. Ends on Monday the 16th. We start on the 26th, but they have to have a period so I can get your nutrients out to you and stuff. So sign up ends on the 16th. But I would encourage you, if you're feeling after lockdown, feeling a little bit not yourself, not quite, you know, need a bit of support, and perhaps you can't do it on your own and you want someone else with you, then this is definitely the one for you. So talking about lockdown and podcasts and stuff, I'd love to know, I know you guys love my podcast, but let's share, what are your other favorites? If you could recommend to me a podcast that I need to listen to, what would you do? I'm going to go to Lena first, because I know you're a big all-round podcast listener. Who would you recommend that I tune into?
Well, it wouldn't be so much for nutrition, but it's more for well-being overall. I love listening to Fran Cotton, and it's for Happy Place. She has so many great guests on her podcast, and a lot of themes that she talks about very resonates with me as well. So I always find it really interesting and uplifting and motivating to hear even like some big celebrities and stories, and to hear like the struggles that they've been through and how they overcame that and their beliefs.
Brilliant. I'll check that one out. I did know she had a podcast and I haven't listened to any of them. And I knew it was a happy one as well. So I should have done. So that is definitely going on my podcast list. Thank you, Lena. Dani, have you got any recommendations? Are you a big podcast listener apart from mine?
To be honest, I listened to podcasts more before lockdown because I was traveling a lot. And so I definitely, rather than listening to music, I always listen to a podcast. And I haven't so much apart, because I always do the walks that I do with somebody else. Yes. So there's always a chit chat going on. But that's the second time today someone's mentioned Fearne Cotton. So,
oh, wow.
And actually the person that mentioned it is also a client of yours as well as a client of mine. So I think we should listen to our clients, Wendy. But my go-to, there's two. One is Cal Fussman, who is an American journalist, or was, and he's a great storyteller. So his name is Cal, C-A-L, and Fussman, F-U-S-S-M-A-N. And he has all sorts of celebrities, but people that you've never heard of, but have all got amazing stories. And they tend to be quite short podcasts. So they work quite well, to fit in with things that you're doing, whether it's a walk or something else. But he's also interviewed people like Arnie Schwarzenegger, and he's very humble. Some of these podcasts, not you, Wendy, but some of them, the presenter is a little bit, it's all about them.
Yes.
So I don't like those ones, but he is brilliant at highlighting his guests. And the other one that I love, I have to admit to, and I know Tony will probably be more into this maybe, but it's the rugby one with James Haskell, and
he listens to that one. Yeah, he has recommended that to me, actually.
And although it's all about rugby and we are a rugby family, it's really interesting listening about professional sports from the point of view of people that have had challenges and things. I just love people's stories, no matter what it is. I used to really love Tim Ferriss, but I got a little bit with that one. But sometimes I'll have a guest that's worth listening to, but I think with podcasts, the presenter will make or break it, more so than maybe the guests. So we're in good company here.
Oh, thank you. And I have listened to Cal, actually, and he is so enthusiastic, isn't he? He's like
he just draws such fascinating things out of people, and you don't need to know who they are. So it's a little bit like with you, just that interest and passion to draw out of people the emotion. It's not always the wonderful story. Sometimes it's the nitty-gritty of it, and that's life, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely it is. Thank you for those. I will check out the rugby one, because Tony has said to me about listening to the rugby one, and as we are now season ticket holders again for the Wasps next season, because obviously during lockdown we couldn't, and we actually cancelled our tickets because of my studying, because I couldn't go. So he was like, no, well, we'll not go for the second 2 years. The first year we did, but it was really awkward. So the second 2 years of studying, we didn't have a season ticket. As it happens, it ended up being COVID, and so it wasn't such a bad decision. But he's just got us tickets for season tickets for next year. So I need to gen up on my rugby knowledge.
I couldn't remember the name of it because it was the House of Rugby. It's now called The Good, the Bad and the Rugby.
Good. I will check that one out. Thank you. Lucy, what would you recommend? What would be your must listen?
Well, I'm a bit of a podcast addict, although a little bit same in that since lockdown I've had less traveling time, so I don't listen to it as much. So it won't surprise you, Wendy, knowing what my business is, which I work in marketing, that I listen to a lot of marketing podcasts. So if you wanted to go down that route, I'd definitely say people like James Wedmore and Amy Porterfield, because even though there's quite a cultural difference because they're both Americans and their businesses obviously mainly based in the States, there's so much good stuff that you can learn from them. And similarly, Liz Melville, who is a Scot who talks about Facebook adverts, is absolutely brilliant, and she's very down to earth and very real and very fun as well. And if you ever see her reels on Instagram, they're absolutely hilarious.
She is great.
Quite a dry topic and turns it into something more. I've got two others I wanted to tell you about. One that I listen to sometimes, which is Rebecca Hayden's. She does quite short episodes, sort of 15 to 20 minutes, and it's called Arise, the podcast. And they're nice little snippets on things like being confident, putting yourself first, having boundaries, all those kinds of mindset things. And they're just like little nuggets that I find quite interesting. And then the other one that's been recommended to me that I haven't yet listened to, and possibly feels a little bit left field, but Carrie Ad Lloyd, the comedian, has got a podcast, and it's called Griefcast.
Okay.
Now, it was recommended to me after we had a bereavement in the family by someone who knows me really, really well. And I still have it on my list for when I feel it's the right time. And she said, listen to it because it will surprise you in how insightful it is, how thoughtful it is, but also how lighthearted it is. And it's talking to people about their experiences with grief. But it's, I guess, that having not listened to it, I am guessing it might help reframe things a little bit, so it feels like a really positive thing to listen to. So if anyone listens to it, then let me know what you think.
Oh, that's lovely, and I like that diversity. I listen to a lot of marketing ones as well, so you won't be surprised. I have lots of marketing and lots of kind of nutrition kind of themed ones on mine. I also really like travel podcasts, unsurprisingly, but I would say if I was going to recommend any to you, my first one would be, only because I want him as a guest on the podcast. In fact, I just want to meet him. He's kind of my not so secret crush. He's a guy called Ian Hill, and it's called the Plant Proof Podcast. And he's an Aussie, and he's a vegan, but he has a very like balanced view. So he often gets guests who aren't fully vegan or will talk about, non-vegan items. And I just really like him. I love his style. He's quite cute as well. So I'd love him as a guest. But I'd like to do an in-person interview, please. And then for a bit of
Wendy, is there something about the name?
I know, yeah, Hill, I know. It's a bit weird, isn't it? And then my other one would be a really light-hearted one, and I literally laugh out loud at some point during this one, and it's called No Such Thing as a Fish. And it was recommended to me before I started podcasting by a friend of mine who is another avid podcast listener. And she said, it's just really fun and lighthearted. And every week they just take 4 facts or questions. They each choose one, and then they talk around it. They each obviously do a little bit of research around it before they sit down. And again, it's a bit like the inquisitive question, Dani. It's where it goes to random places. And so often when the Olympics are on, I haven't listened to it for 3 weeks, but often when the Olympics is on, they'll do questions around the mad facts about the Olympics, and like belly flop was once an Olympic event. Yeah, seriously, belly flopping was. And it's like, you can't not laugh at that, can you? It's like nuts. So if that would be my recommendation, that would be it. So check it out. It's just very lighthearted. It's quite a long one. I like longer podcasts. I like to kind of get involved, like a good hour. But I think, like all of you, I'm listening to less and less, and I hadn't realized it is because I'm traveling less. I'm not in the car so often, so I don't listen to them the same. And sometimes I like to go for a walk and just be in the moment and hear the birds and and feel that, be very here and very present. And I think sometimes when you're playing a podcast, it kind of takes you away. You miss things and you don't always see them. And I think there's so much going on, isn't there, that we would definitely need to do that. So Thank you for being with me today. I have absolutely loved this. And I'm going to end, and I don't know, you've done the quick fire round before, just to say I'm going to put a link in for everyone. So for Dani's episodes, and Lucy, I'll put a link in for your business as well, because you do great things. She's a great marketer, highly recommended. But I'm going to do the quick fire round if that's all right. So I'm only going to ask you one question from the quick fire round. And Lena, I'm going to come to you and ask you, what have you got for tea?
Oh, I actually, from the farm shop, I got purple cauliflower, which I never had before. And I was just Googling what to actually do, and it turns out you can just put like a regular cauliflower. So I think I'm just going to roast it with some vegetables.
Lovely. I saw that, and was it Bradshaw's farm shop? Lena lives near me. I took a picture of them on, I went on Friday, I think it was, and they had the Romanesque and the purple, and they just looked so beautiful, didn't they? And I nearly bought one, and I resisted because I really didn't need them. So wow, yeah, lovely, very nice. Enjoy. Dani, what food reminds you of childhood?
Well, I did this on your podcast.
Yeah. I can't remember what you said.
Well, that's good, because I don't think my answer has changed. It's my grandma's homemade apple pie and custard.
I think that was it. That does ring a bell. Yeah.
She was the most amazing pastry chef. She was the head chef at Aston Villa's training ground in Bodymoor Heath. And they were very lucky footballers back in the day when they had her cooking for them. Her pastry was as short as is possible. It would literally melt in the mouth. And she would always have some ready in the freezer. So my preference was always apple. My cousin's was always cherry. So there was always a mixture for everyone, because if you like something, she would always want to make that for you endlessly. But that would be mine. But Wendy, what's yours?
Food that reminds me of childhood. I think, it's bread and butter and potatoes. So and not well, possibly not together. Well, possibly, but for, childhood for me, we always had potatoes. Didn't matter what the meal was. Mine and my brother's job were very similar in age. My brother was, and when we came in from school, if my mom was working, and she kind of went through periods where she was and she wasn't, but if she was working, our job would be to peel a load of potatoes. And then they would either be chips or mash or roast or whatever, but it would be a big, and there's 5 of us and we've all got enormous appetite. So it would be a washing up bowl full of potatoes for tea. And then the other thing is whatever we had, I think possibly even Sunday dinner, there was always a plate of bread and butter in the middle of the table. Again, because we had such ginormous appetites that we would need bread and butter to support whatever meal we were having.
Actually, we had that as well. I wonder if that's a
generational thing,
bulking the meal up or something. There's something for you to look into.
Yeah. Thank you. Definitely. But yeah, that was it. Lucy, coming to you next. So I'm gonna ask you the third one as well. So my question for you is, what is your most memorable meal?
Oh, my most memorable meal would be, there's a few that stand out, but do you know, the one that first springs into my mind is my first anniversary with my now husband. Before we were married, so first anniversary of us dating, we went to Ashbourne in Derbyshire, and we had our first tasting menu. Oh. And it became our thing. So we now, whenever we're really lucky to be able to get out and about, we go, and if we can, we go and have a tasting menu. But it was a really special evening, and I can't remember even what was on the menu, but I just remember just sitting there and just thinking, this is good.
Oh, how lovely. I love tasting menus. Needless to say, I don't do them very often with my husband, with his habits. We have done one, and it wasn't a total disaster. I knew what was coming up, so I could check what was on the menu, and they did change one course for him, but I just said, I'm not doing this again, because he didn't really enjoy it. He was like, it's just not his thing. So if I go, I always take a friend, and we always go. So I do love tasting menus. They are excellent. They are excellent. Right, ladies, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me for the 100th episode. I really appreciate your support. I appreciate you listening. and, you know, I appreciate you being here with me. I did actually put a post out on Facebook earlier asking people if they wanted to ask me a question. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to record the 101st episode and answer all of those questions, because I wasn't alone today. My lovely friends joined me. So it was really great to have a chat with you guys. So I will record. So next week, if you tune in, it's going to be me answering the questions that were posted on the Facebook. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you're doing, and keep listening.
Oh, congratulations,
Thank you.
Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.